Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. This one coming for you today is probably a first for us, certainly here at the Roll or Die podcast. I guess we're in a fairly unique position in that we are one of the few Australian Brazilian Jiu Jitsu podcasts that are released weekly, and our guests today are also in that same boat. So this is probably the equivalent of cross-training, or jumping across and having a class or two at another club, and that's what we're here about today. So today's guests, you might have heard of them. They have been doing their podcast called the Gi Spot podcast for probably just under a year now.
Yep.
And we have had one of the halves of that podcast previously on our Roll or Die episode with her lovely husband, Grant. Her name is Rachael Bradshaw. We have her co-host, Kaz Page, joining us today, and we're looking forward to getting to know these co-hosts of the Gi Spot podcast. Thanks for joining us, ladies.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I mean, I was thinking it's more like an open mat, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes.
If you want to call it.
I'm so happy, Kim, that you did the intro and said G Spot first, because I know at some stage I will say that.
Yes.
That's what we're hoping for, Brent. That's absolutely what we're hoping for.
It's really hard to find.
Legit, being a man and trying to find that podcast, I couldn't find it either. So, it's just terrible.
I can tell you after almost a year, it still hasn't got old.
Yeah.
Good to know. I'm like, it's the same shit jokes you've heard 12 times.
No, it's still funny.
The funniest part that happened... The funniest part that happened was when we actually launched, and we published our first episode to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and things like that. But we jumped the gun with our socials. So we put up all over our socials that the Gi Spot was out. You can go find it on Spotify and this and that. But it takes time for it to, especially that first episode, to actually publicly load and launch to the everyone. So they were looking for it and literally couldn't find it. So anyway,
did you throw around? Were there any other suggested names that you considered in its place, or was it always going to be?
We played for a little bit with a couple of different names, and then Rach sort of put it out there. I think in the moment, being funny. And not real serious, and I just launched on it and went, that's it, we got to do that. Rach and I are very, Rach is the innocent part until you get deeper into her head and you start to realize the gremlins that are actually in there. But public facing, she's prim and proper and I am anything but. So when she put it out there and I went, yes, we're doing it. She's like, oh, do you really think? Yes, I really think so.
Actually, Kaz had to talk me off the cliff for a couple of days about it, because I'm like, oh, I don't know. Okay, yes, it sounds good. Oh, no, I don't know. I had forwards and backs with it. And then finally I said, okay, before we actually go with this name for sure, we have to send it out with our concept to some trusted people in our lives to see how they'd receive it. And it was really interesting because Kaz had a couple of friends from America, and it was the guys that were more like, oh, no, you shouldn't call it that. But the girls loved it. All the women loved it.
Hilariously so.
The guys were more like, oh, I don't think you should.
And then it was actually... Then they started to realize the Aussie kind of sense of humor, and they'd known us long enough to go, oh, that's going to go really well in your country.
Yeah.
And it has. It's kind of hit the mark every time. And even with some of the international guests we've had, they've had a play with it as well, and it seems to just fit. So you don't forget it, that's for sure.
That's right.
Once you find it.
Yeah, that's the key, right? And I have absolutely listened to episodes as well. So there's a couple of things I love about your podcast. The first one is visually, it always looks really good. Your logo really stands out. So whoever designed that, they've smashed that. I think it's really, really good. But the banter and the enjoyment that you obviously have between each other, it's hilarious. You obviously enjoy spending time with each other and those sorts of things. You're a good part of each other's lives. So whereabouts did you guys meet? For those that haven't kind of met you or listened to the podcast at all, whereabouts did you guys meet?
Literally on the mats. So Matt and I and our family had been with another school for about 7 years. And for a myriad of reasons, the landscape changed and we decided it was time for a change too. and some things had happened that had affected our family in different ways. And so my promise to Matt was, when we move to the new gym, I promise I will stay out of friendships. I'll stay out of, I'm very much, I'm the fixer. I get in, I want to fix everything. I want to do everything. And that can either be real positive or not so positive. And so I promised my husband that the one thing I would not do is form any friendships. We just keep it as, this is the place that we go to train and that's all there is to it. And ta-da!
Besties.
Like a ball.
Literally. We'd been training with them for almost, it'd probably be close to 6 months. And Matt and I have another podcast that we had been doing for a couple of years at that point. And Rach was listening to that podcast. And then, we formed a really special friendship, and we're very like-minded in some aspects and very opposite end, which kind of balance each other out. And one day she just rocked up and went, "Hey, how do you feel about doing a jiu-jitsu podcast?" I'm like, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
And I think I had it all squared and ready to go in about 3 days.
I come up with some of these ideas and Kaz is right, we're going to make this happen. And if it was all on my shoulders, we'd probably still be talking about it. But we're almost a year into recording because Kaz just goes, I'm going to take that ball and run with it and score the try and convert the try and do all those things. And here we are.
Yeah. So she's got our whole family now pretty much in her face 7 days a week.
I'm not complaining.
It's interesting that you had that caveat that you were not to make friends like on the mats, because to be honest, I feel like most of us in jiu-jitsu, I mean, that's our social life. Like that's kind of the way that you make friends, especially as an adult. Like it's quite difficult to do an activity like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and not form those bonds.
Yep. Oh, he knew I was full of shit. Like it was never going to happen.
Okay. Yeah.
It was never a promise I could keep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I was going to say, like, well, how? Yeah.
I think it comes from being hurt, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Yeah, from the previous experience, and then going, all right, well, we're not going to go through that hurt again.
Yeah.
But then her and I just clicked, and how I knew it was going to work is because we just don't shut up when we're in each other's company, and it is just constant back and forth and banter and laughs and enjoyment. And, I always say, like, if we had one listener or no listeners, but even if we just had one, we don't, thank goodness, people actually want to listen to us. But if we only had one listener, I would still do this every week because it gives us an excuse to come in and sit down and talk about the thing that we love and topics that we want to talk about and go away. So it's
and
really
as you guys would know too, like you can bring any topic up, any topic from life, and relate it back somehow to jiu-jitsu and what you're getting from it, right? So we did an episode last week, the week before on what do you call it? Dedication to one another. What was the
relationship?
Yeah, the relationship one and loyalty. Loyalty. And loyalty is such a big thing for me outside in my every aspect of my world, right? Trust, honesty, loyalty, those kind of things are huge. You impart that in your children, you impart that and expect that in your friend relationships, in your romantic, in your business. We centralized it around jiu-jitsu and, business owners and people on the mats and in amongst members, etc. But it just proves that you can bring any topic and bring it back onto the mats and be able to relate to what jiu-jitsu gives you in that frame. So at that one hour or 2 hours a week, we get to come together and banter and joke, and I wouldn't give that up even if we didn't have a listener.
It's funny actually because the episodes I've listened to, it reminded me of, in like a really weird way, of Seinfeld. Like it's kind of like it's the show about nothing because it's nothing specific. Yeah, like you guys cover such a wide-ranging sort of topic, but you bring it back to jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So like the pods that I've listened to that you guys have done, that's what I got from it, So like, oh, what are we talking about today? And you're like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, like you're off and you're running and it's like, oh shit, this is entertaining, So.
And then we get to the end of it and go, did we cover anything? I don't know, but it was really fun.
No,
You're
the topic
so
that we brought
correct.
up, we missed, but
Yeah.
Actually, that happened to us last week, and this episode hasn't come out yet, but we started kind of on one theme, and then it really switched into another area. We got lost in the woods a little bit, and then we came back at the end and we're like, did we really cover that off? I don't know. We might have to do another episode and come back to that.
But you know what? I listened to it, and unbeknownst to us, we actually covered it off really well.
Oh, there you go.
there you go. Have you guys, have you ever like binned an episode? Have you ever recorded one and went, you know what, let's bin it?
I think we have a couple of times.
Producer Matt, I don't think we have. Hang on, I got to pull the curtain back so I can see him. Have we?
Producer Matt's
Yeah,
behind a curtain.
There's been one that we didn't go to air with, and it was just because it didn't quite fit with the direction we were going at that time and place. But other than that, everything's been super duper good and absolute gold. So
Yeah.
good by everybody.
Made it to the air
You know what? Producer
Yeah.
Matt's going to start. I'm going to start calling him the Wizard of Oz.
because he sits behind
He
the
sits
curtain.
behind the curtain, but you hear his voice come out every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you guys come up with your topics? Like, are they just sort of random ones? Have you like had a situation that has brought that about and you think, oh, that'll be a really good one, let's do that next week sort of thing? Or is it a bit more calculated than that?
So when we started, Kaz and I had a sit down and we did a massive deep dive think tank. And we came up with something like 64 episodes before we even recorded our first one. Because at that point too, we thought that maybe we'll get the odd guest on and this and that, but we kind of thought it would be mostly us. In recent times, we've been getting more and more guests on, which is always amazing. But so we've got this whole list of 64 different topics, and then every now and most weeks, something will come up for us, won't it? Where we actually go, you know what, this thing happened this week, or this is something I was thinking about. I think it would fit really well, or this is an important topic that I want to cover. Or, we get a lot of topic ideas from things that happen on Facebook in, the groups or on Reddit and stuff that other people bring up as a question. So those things will slip in. I don't know how many we have left. We probably still have like 50 left.
Yeah, I think once we started doing it and started recording, we realized that some of them in their nuances weren't big enough to do a full episode around, or that you were covering like 2 or 3 of them in the one episode as you were going through anyway. So there's probably, 20 or 30 left that we haven't gone back and reviewed or worked in yet, only because, as Rach said, like there's something inevitably blows up on socials, or people will hit us up and go, hey, last week you said that, can you elaborate something there? Or it will trigger a question from them to come down, and we'll have another new topic to come through. As with all things, I have 5 in my family on the mat. I have 3 daughters and my husband and I train. Rachel's got her 2 sons and her husband that are running the gym. There's always fodder. There's always something to talk about.
Yeah.
One of the episodes I listened to, you actually put something out on some of the Facebook pages, Rachel, in regards to getting your black belt and that sort of stuff. What was the actual, I can't remember what the podcast was called, but you were sort of like, what's it like when you get your black belt? And do you remember that podcast that you put out?
Oh gosh, sometimes I don't remember what I put out last week.
You were talking about the mountain, the bushwalk and that as well.
The bushwalk one?
Yeah.
Is that where I did the analogies?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell us about that, Rachel.
About the bushwalk or just about the story?
About the story, about both.
Yeah. So, I mean, I live my life in analogies. Well, I do my coaching in analogies, and Kaz loves this about me, but I'm always trying to relate things to something else. And especially on the mats, when we teach jiu-jitsu, it can get really dry if you're a coach that just says, put your left foot here and your right hand there. You've got to come up with stories and ways that it becomes meaningful in everyday life. And anyway, I went on this bushwalk with my husband, and I'd done it a couple of years earlier, and I remember thinking about it at the time, but just it kind of had 5 distinct stages to this bushwalk. And the first one, you sort of set off and it's all very new and exciting, and, it's big, wide open spaces and you're still on the ground level. And then it comes to this stage where you kind of turn a corner and you start going up this really steep hill. So I was kind of like, well, the first part's like white belt because the whole world is open to you and it's this new exciting, thing that you're on and you've got help. And I don't know, I feel like when you're a white belt, everyone wants to help you and guide you and all this sort of stuff. When you hit blue belt, it kind of gets hard. And I think that's where people enter the blue belt blues a little bit. And they realize that maybe they weren't as good as what they thought they were. And maybe now everyone's just kind of going a little bit harder on them and their expectations of themselves and things like that. So this next stage of this hike was like quite steep and hard. And then the next part, it kind of opens out again, but it gets windy and there's a few tracks that you can go down and the view's a little nicer because you're climbing up this mountain. And I liken that to purple belt because now, you start to explore things more for yourself and you're not so lost in the bog of it, in that blue belt portion of the hike, your head down, your bum up, you're walking, look at your feet. That's about it. But once you hit purple belt, the world starts to open up a little bit more for you. And then I said, you get to the top of this mountain and you've got views for days and you can see the valleys and the troughs and the peaks of other mountains and you can kind of stand there and really enjoy the view. And that to me was like brown belt, right? You're at the top or pretty much. When I went on the hike with Grant, there was this tiny little trail and he's like, it's not over yet. Because I was ready to turn around and walk back the way we came. And he's like, it's not over there. Like the path still goes. And we had to go through this really thick thicket and we got all scratched up and there was some poison plants that kind of gave us all a rash. And this, as we're trying to make our way through, suddenly everything opened up into this like canopy where it was like rainforest and there was waterfalls and it was just beautiful and you could actually drink the water and I was like, this is like when you get your black belt. So you had to like really go through the hard stuff to get there. But once you did, like it was just beautiful.
Hey, I'm just curious now though, because I've just picked up on a little nuance here and I want to just clarify. So at purple, you kind of get to that landing where you can breathe and you're having a bit of fun with it. And then you get to brown belt and you're almost there and you can see and it's a beautiful view and that. But then you have to go through the shit again to get to the black belt?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
Yeah. You and I, Paz, we've got a long way to go, baby.
Oh, dude.
We've got a lot more shit to get through.
Can I tell you though that you wouldn't do it if that was at the start. If that was at the start, you wouldn't even go through it. You know what I mean? But because you've gone this far, you don't want to turn around.
You might as well.
Or quit, So you just go, you know what? We're just going to do it. And you get through and then it's joyful. But the thing that happened on the last, so I've done it twice. The first time I only noticed the black belt part of the walk or in my mind, the analogy of it. The one I did just recently, I realized that once we got there, we had to keep going because we weren't home yet. Like we had to go back down the mountain and follow the rest of the path around. And there were trees that were blocking the path that we had to climb over. And there was more stinging nettle that was there. That was, if we weren't to touch it, otherwise we'd end up with big rashes. And we had to like fight our way through some more thickets. So the thing is, the journey never ends, does it?
And Rachael, tell us about the day that you got your black belt. So you've used that analogy, but tell us about the actual physical. Because last time when we spoke with you on this podcast, when you were with Grant, you were still a brown belt. So tell us about the actual day and what happened.
When we were on the podcast last, the date had been set for my black
belt. You were planning to do it, but it hadn't actually occurred yet.
Yeah. So that was December 2022. So in December, I'm qualify for my first degree. So that was 3 years ago. So under our lineage and under my coach, there's a test that we have to do. And it's basically Alio Gracie put out a self-defense book. And it's, I don't know how thick this thing is. It's huge. And there's so many techniques that we have to learn. That's just sort of the true fundamental Gracie Jiu Jitsu self-defense curriculum. And we had to know that without hesitation or without thought it had to be muscle memory, and it was a failable test. So if you get in there and you shit the bed on the day, you can fail and walk home still a brown belt. Luckily, I had been teaching most of the curriculum for years to my women's classes that I put on. So I really knew it very, very well, and I felt really confident with that. But there was other aspects of the test that I knew that I was going to be in for, like, the pressure testing and the rolling and, weapons and all this sort of stuff that I knew it was coming, but you don't know it until you're in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you have to go through that test. And luckily, I apparently I was very impressive on the day. Everyone, unanimously voted that I should be a black belt, and I got it on that day. So it was really, really special. It was a rite of passage.
Fantastic.
Really cool. And Kaz, tell us about, you're still purple belt now, right?
Yep.
So where are you at with your journey? So how long have you been training? How often do you get on the mats? And then also purple belt's a pretty big deal too, right? I'm a purple belt, so I'm saying it's a big deal.
Then I'm with you. It's a huge deal.
Exactly.
Purple belt was my favourite belt. I loved it.
Mine too.
For me, it's the one where you really get your game on. You really get a couple of things that you're really good at, and you kind of get known for those things. So I would say embrace the purple belt for as long as you can.
Kind of like you flying under the radar. You're not
pressure.
There's no pressure.
Yeah.
You're not the newbie anymore.
Yeah.
You've got the respect in the academy, but also I felt, and I don't know if you felt it, Kim, too, but once that brown belt went on, it was like, this is getting close now. Like, so you've got that pressure, but purple belt, there's no pressure.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
100%.
Anyway, over to you, Kaz.
So my journey through jiu-jitsu has been a bit kind of like a roller coaster ride, I guess. I joined jiu-jitsu because my now 14-year-old daughter basically questioned why I was the only one in the family not training. So my husband joined jiu-jitsu, and it was really a therapeutic room for him. He's an ex-soldier, and he's taken a pretty severe brain trauma. And so jiu-jitsu really became his place of therapy. And then as he was doing it, we were very much a martial art background family. So our girls were always going to be put into some form of martial art. It just happened that jiu-jitsu ended up becoming the 1, 2, 3. So all girls are now training. And then Scarlett turned around to me one day and went, "Mum, it's the Page family sport. Like, what are you doing?" So on the mats, I then started. My husband was a blue belt when I joined. And all my kids were also sort of surpassed me in their training as well. So for me, white belt and probably a good portion of my blue belt was really, I was there for my family. I wasn't there for me. Jiu-jitsu wasn't my journey. My family was my journey. I met a lot of friends. We had a lot of social attributes. We traveled across America. We went to a myriad of gyms across America. I got to meet a lot of other people that became my friends. It wasn't really until we switched over to Iconic with Rachael and Grant. And they do, as Rach was just saying, for her black belt, but for the other color belts as well, they do a grading scenario. And where I had come from, they hadn't. And so all of a sudden, if I wanted my purple belt, they've tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You need to grade now. You need to come up. You're not a blue belt. Like, we're done now." But that all of a sudden meant that I had to invest. And that's not something I had historically done. And so that was kind of the make or break moment of, do I walk away from this now because it's really not my thing? Can I walk away from this because my family is still going to continue on? If I'm going to stay, then I need to find my why. And that was sort of a myriad of questions that I really had to sit down and analyze if this was something that I was enjoying. Was I getting something out of this for me? If not, walk away, because I'm neurodivergent and I have a lot of anxiety in spaces that I'm not comfortable in. And so doing that kind of a grading was going to be horrific for me in that regard. And so it would have been easier to walk away. But I'm a purple belt.
She's not a quitter. And now she does a jiu-jitsu
Congratulations.
podcast and everything.
So I found my why. I found my why with a lot of help from my husband and Rach and Grant. And once I had that why, it was all systems go.
Just listening to you there, Kaz, I wonder if other blue belts, that whole blue belt blues and the quitting at blue belt, I wonder if other people go through a similar thing in their head, but then they don't take that next step, yeah?
I would argue it's statistically, I think jiu-jitsu has a very big pool of neurodivergent people anyway. I think there is something very magnetizing about it because it is something that does quieten the noise. It does allow you to be very analytical. It does allow for that very black and white space. There's not a lot of gray, tap or don't tap. Like it's not rocket science in that regard. So I think there is a lot of people like me that will come to this space. I think the pressure, we say, and I don't disagree, that purple belt is a fun space to be in, but getting to purple belt is a challenge, right? And if you don't genuinely have that why in there, then it could just be too hard a basket, walk away. So I think there sometimes needs to be a tap on the shoulder of what's your why.
Have you spoken about your why in regards to that?
We did a whole episode on mat anxiety. And it was literally all around me coming into my purple belt and the process that I had to go through. I mean, Matt and I were talking about this morning on our other podcast too. Leading into it, you need advocacy, right? You need people that will champion for you sometimes. And we were talking about my daughter and I have this response where we cry. It's our internals exploding and all the rest of it. We don't want you to notice that. We don't want you to see it. We don't want you to bring focus to it. We don't want anything. So for a long time in jiu-jitsu, we had to tell other kids that were rolling with Scarlett, look, she may cry, please ignore it. If you can keep going, just keep going through, because that's her processing, that's her deregulation, etc. She's still in the role. She's still there with you. She's still doing. I'm no different. If I'm in a high pressure state and I feel like all the pressure's on me and everybody's staring at me and I'm the center focus point and it's about me, then that wells in me too. And then I get frustrated and angry because I'm doing it. And, there's this whole myriad of things. On the day, that was my biggest fear, and I couldn't stop that emotion coming. And I was fortunate that these guys just get it, because Grant stood up in front of everybody, sent me off to the bathroom and said, Kaz, go wash your face. And it was his way of getting me out of the room so he could champion for me and just say to everybody, no matter what she looks like, just be there for her. Like, just keep going. Don't, you're probably going to see this real spurgy person come out and be different, but let her go, and that was the best thing that could have happened, because irrelevant of how I was processing physically, I got through it. Everybody on that mat was, let's go, Kaz. Let's go, Kaz. And it didn't matter that I was bawling my eyes out like a 2-year-old baby.
Do you find that that's happening less? Like, is there like a level of, hey, I'm getting used to this?
Yes, and that's with every aspect of my life. Once I'm in it and I'm immersed in it and I've got that, it's, I guess to a large degree, it's trusting in me and it's trusting in those around me. So at Iconic now, I have a group of people that I trust implicitly, and I trust in me, I guess, to a degree too. You can feel that two-way collaboration going constantly. And once that starts to happen, the rest of the noise around, you can compartmentalize and just say, that's noise. That's okay. It doesn't matter. If you then said to me tomorrow, go and compete, it would start again. I'm back to square one.
Yeah. And Kaz, tell us about the other podcast. Sorry, Rachel, we will come back to you eventually. Tell us
It's okay.
Your other podcast, Love Conquers.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
So in 2020, I released our book called My Broken Soldier. And the book is our story through Matt's deployments, having babies while he's in a war zone, and then his injury and the 7-year battle after that. After we released the book, we got a whole lot of feedback going, kind of like, part 2, where are you up to now? What are you doing? Are you guys still together, etc. And I didn't have it in me at that time to write another book. And so I just said to Matt, can we do a podcast? Can we just give updates out there on how we are? I'm 10 years older than him. I had children before we got together. There's just so many things about us that shouldn't work. And we've made it work. We've endured, we've gone through hurdles, we've gone through a whole myriad of shit, and we're still standing tall together. And so we release that every week. We just talk about we're 100% honest, all the good, all the bad, where we've got it wrong, where we've failed. I'm divorced twice, so clearly I'm very good at fucking things up. So we talk about all of that, what it's like for him to be a stepdad. And then our middle child has been diagnosed very early on in the piece, and we've had a myriad of medical teams working with us around her for ASD and ADHD and a myriad of other things. We knew it derived probably from me, a good portion of it, some from him. And so then a while ago, I went and got all the tests done and got diagnosed as well under the banner of neurodivergent and to understand my pathway. So we now bring that into play in the podcast as well. And we talk a lot about neurodivergency versus neurotypical. And just to try and educate people about language and what it actually means. I'm not angry, I'm tisming, or, you know, there's a lot to be said for down regulation, and what does that look like and how can people help?
Yeah, it's funny actually, because that was the word, that tism word you used on your podcast quite a few times when I've been listening. I'm like, the fuck is that, man? So can you give us a quick... Because there was a band called Tism, right? And I don't think that's the same Tism that you're talking about.
It could be.
No, is it musical? Maybe. No. It might be it might be a group of tismed people all bringing it together.
Like, is that Tism? Is Tism like a known word, or is that something that you've just sort of come up with?
No, touched by the tisms. Tism's a known thing in the neurodivergent. Yeah.
So
we dance around a bit. Yeah. We're touched by the tisms.
And so, yeah, as I said, Rachel, I said we would get back to you, and we have. So since we last spoke with you on Roll or Die when you were on with Grant, you've taken on a lot more of a coaching role. You've touched on it a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about how you found coaching over the past 2.5 years or so.
So the last time I was on your podcast, I was a brown belt. It was, I think, during COVID or just in the midst of that anyway. I was working at Police Emergency 000. That was my day job or night job, shift work job, day, nights in between. And we were both running the academy extra. So Grant's a high school teacher. I was working for police and we were running the academy. So after COVID, as most jiu-jitsu academies realised, everyone changed their priorities about what they wanted to do with their lives, right? It really, I think, gave everyone a new, fresh perspective. And a lot of people that have sort of thought, oh, you know, I'd really like to learn how to defend myself or try jiu-jitsu or whatever, finally just went, you know what, like, if anything's taught us not to wait and to just get on with it, it's COVID. Let's do it. So we got busier. When we opened back up, we had lots of new inquiries and things like that. And I started to drown doing both roles because I would always do, you know, all the admin stuff and student contact stuff and things like this. Grant would teach all day and come in and teach all night. So, you know, his plate's very full. And I sat down with him one day and I just went, I can't keep doing this. I can't work and do the academy and all the admin stuff. And it's like I'm overflowing. I'm not coping. My mental health started to take a bit of a battering. And he's like, okay, well, let's give it a try. I had 12 months of long service leave banked. So it wasn't just a complete jump, you know, without any safety net. We had that as a safety net, which was a beautiful place to be in. And I started, I went on 12 months long service leave. And the minute I started putting 100% focus into the academy, we just exploded even more. So we just went from strength to strength to strength, grew. I became a black belt. I started, you know, I was already coaching a lot at that point. As soon as I pretty much, I'm trying to think of the time frame. It must have been I had just gotten my black belt, and in January, so December I got my black belt. In January, I started looking after the academy full time. So I teach all the day classes. I teach kids program, I teach the women's program, and then whenever Grant needs to go away and like go to a gig or, you know, school stuff or school camp or anything else that he's got going on, I run those classes as well. And then we have such a wonderful community of people that we can also draw on if we need extra coaches and things like that too. So I probably do just about more than 50% of the coaching load. But absolutely love it. It's like I'm absolutely living the dream.
She does light up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, you can see it. What have you learnt? So now as a coach, what have you learnt through jiu-jitsu and coaching that you're sort of using, like, you know, in everyday life? Are there things that you've sort of brought in?
So my everyday life is the academy and coaching. The one thing that I would say as a coach now is that my world's closed in. It's actually shrunk. It's gotten smaller. So before, when I used to go to work, I'd have all my work colleagues. I'd be getting phone calls, you know, people in emergency situations. I was talking to people about their lives and things like that. I'd have something else to bring to the table at night, you know, when you're in a family situation, talk about your day and that sort of thing. Now that has shrunk and everything is about the academy and the students. And I'm just, I don't know, what was it, 2022? So I'm thinking so it's been a couple of years of fully just that. Just now I'm starting to go, okay, I actually need to start opening my world up again a little bit and finding some outside interests. It's been really good for the last couple of years, but I realized that everything's shrunk. So I need to open things out again. Yeah.
For people that don't follow you on social media, something that you do that I actually love, and I think you've just started doing it this year, is you post up your roles. So you keep sort of a tally of your roles for the year, and you know, say you've had 6 roles in the class and 3 of them were blue belts and a brown belt and whatever. Like you give a little sort of rundown on all of that. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, disappointingly, I've just let that go by the wayside.
Oh no!
It's further this year than last year.
So
Yeah.
it was last year.
Looks like you have to bring it back.
It looks like I might have to. Last year I did it, and I did it for about a month or two. Someone just asked me, or made a quip actually about like, oh, you don't roll as much as what I do or something like that. And I'm like, you're here 2 days a week. I'm here 6 days a week. Like if I were to add up my rolls over the course of a week, I would have you slam dunk so bad. So as a bit of a joke, I started to log my rolls, and I did that for about a month or two, and then I just sort of let it go. But what happened was about a month after I let it go, I started getting all these people coming in my inbox going, what happened to your rolls? Are you okay? You injured? Like, what's going on? That was so inspiring, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this year I did it right up until April, until we went away on holidays. I just got out of the habit just because we were away on holidays, and I came back and I got injured almost immediately upon my return. I just had my arm hyperextended, and then I was off the mats for about 2 weeks. And honestly, there was probably then 6 weeks of not posting, and I just hadn't got back to it. So unfortunately,
Please bring it back. Okay. Please, I really enjoyed it. It was really enjoyable for me, even for me, as a black belt. Like I still enjoyed seeing that, and it was really informative, I thought.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what I was up to too. I think I was.
You just have to go back to the last one and start from there.
Or
just add like 10 or 15 onto it.
Oh, there'd be more than that actually. There'd be that in last week, but no, more than that in last week. It's really fun. I actually started it because I wanted to give myself apart from so this year I restarted it because I wanted to give myself renewed focus and really start to knuckle down about, you know, making sure that I was training with intent. It's really easy, I think, when you get to black belt sometimes to just go with the flow and just rock up and have your fun rolls with your favorite training partners and go home again, you know, not have that. Unless you're competing or have a reason, it's really easy to just do day by day. And I wanted to go, no, okay, I'm going to bring back the intensity and the intent of my rolling and focus. So it allowed me to identify, hey, today was a really easy training day, or maybe it was just a few white belts that I rolled with. Whereas another day, no, I rolled with every black belt in the room. I worked my way down. Like, so I went every black belt, then every brown belt, and then I ran out of rounds. So that was fine. Or, it kept me honest, I think. And then what I tried to do is always look for the highlight. So what was the best part about my training today? Did I learn something? Did I do something well? Did someone else teach me? Some days it was just like, man, I just showed up today and that was my highlight because I sucked, and then other days it was, hey, I made some magic work today and I wouldn't even be able to recreate it if I tried, but it was a really cool moment, that sort of thing. So
that I don't know if humanifies is a word, but I'm going to use it anyway. It humanizes is my word, black belts. Because I think as the journey goes through, for somebody to walk around with a black belt around their hips, everybody that is not there yet is looking at you all like you're some sort of god almost, because you made it. And when you put a post up that says, I was literally just the friggin' nail all day today, that really says that it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. Somebody else is always better than you, and you just have to keep going back and trying. If you're the smartest person in the room, get out of the room.
And I do think too, they say leave the ego at the door, but there's ego always in every gym. And I think that sometimes black belts or higher belts or whatever will walk around never admitting their fault or the fact that they get beaten or tapped. Yeah. And, you hear stories about coaches that if their student does tap them, well, then they blast them for the next month, or they train really hard with, we've all heard stories of this sort of thing go on. I just wanted to really just put it out there and go, hey, I'm human and I have really hard training partners, and man, if you're 100 kilo purple belt male, you're probably going to handle me quite well. I haven't got the strength to deal with that. I can try and beat you with technique, and it doesn't mean that you get smashed the entire 5 minutes, but if they tap me and I survive, or if they don't tap me and I just survive, maybe that's a win, but I still felt like the nail today. So yeah, there's always learning to happen.
Post. Yeah, my post would be like, got smashed, be back tomorrow.
Yeah, that's pretty much my daily run.
Yeah. Yeah, and mine, even though I'm black belt, but I still feel like that too. Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I have all the answers. No. Do you guys have any questions for us? Or
yeah, I want to know. So you guys have been doing this since 2020, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, myself and my previous co-host, Anton, and Brentos has been here for about a year now himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just jumped on their coattails, so they did all the hard work. I was actually going to ask you, Kim, hey, when you started, did you have like 65 topics? Like of things that you wanted to cover? You and Anton just went, hey, what are you doing Saturday? Let's jump on.
Yeah, I'm going to give the trade secrets away. Like, honestly, when we started, it was during COVID as well. And especially in Melbourne, we had a pretty harsh lockdowns and we were really not able to train very much. So I think the jiu-jitsu community really felt that lack of community at that time. So for us, the podcast was a way that we could try and keep that connection going. And honestly, initially it was just me chatting with my mates, like just talking to people and finding out what are they up to. Then we unlocked and we sort of had got a bit of momentum by then. So we went, okay, let's just keep going. And then, the first probably 50 to 100 episodes were just me reaching out to people saying, hey, we do this podcast. Do you want to come on as a guest and we'll chat with you? And it's just gone from there. It's not as organised at all as what you girls have put together.
So with yours, though, you have a guest every episode. Is that right?
I think we might have done 2 or 3 without guests where it's just been us talking, like looking back over it. But Brentus, we probably could do one with just the 2 of us. But we've pretty much always had guests.
And so what have been some standout guests for you, like that you've just gone, wow, that was incredible?
So many. We talked about this on one of our, I think, was it the 250th episode, Brentos? Yeah. For me, the Brazilians are always got to be the highlights, let's face it, I couldn't even name which specific Brazilian because they love to tell stories I think they're very good storytellers, and sometimes I think the stories are a bit embellished, but they just really
Never let the truth get in the way.
yeah. And so, yeah, there's just been so many, and it's been amazing, especially getting all the wisdom from so many of them. You know, you realize how much depth there is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Australia when you start listening to some of the guests and some of the stories that they have. So, yeah, for me, they're always a good one, the Brazilian. And you got to love a good Portuguese accent too, hey?
Yeah.
Like, it just makes it a bit more interesting.
Very, very charming.
Kim,
Yes.
how long have when did you get your black belt?
I got my black belt in 2019, so yeah, I'll be coming due for my second degree in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So I started training in 2009, so it's 16 years now, and I have the fingers to prove it.
Ouchie.
I have like the joints of a 75-year-old, according to the orthopedic surgeon
That's
who
always.
looked at my joints a couple of years ago. So yeah, it's been ages.
Is this a family sport for you as well, or is it just you?
Well, interestingly,
right?
yeah, so my husband is he's the editor of this podcast, just as yours is. So I kind of got him into it, and my oldest son also does it. So I gave it a go with my 3 sons of doing jiu-jitsu when they were very little, back when I was a white belt. But to be honest, back then I was a single mum, and I just found the logistics of it just all too much because they were also wanting to continue playing football and basketball and jiu-jitsu, and I was training jiu-jitsu. And look, maybe it was the wrong thing, but I said to them, sorry guys, you just have to choose. I can't physically take you to all of these. And at that stage they didn't choose jiu-jitsu. That being said, my oldest son a couple of years ago, 2 years ago now, went over to Perth and saw the UFC and came back and said, I want to learn MMA. And I said, beauty, let's sign you up to jiu-jitsu and we'll get it in. I think he did 1 MMA class and then gave it away and said, I'm just doing jiu-jitsu now. And that's been it. So, yeah. So 3 out of 5 of us are doing jiu-jitsu.
So 16 years on the mats. And then 2020, you kick off with a podcast and you're finding people and interviewing them. What brings you back to the table week in, week out to continue the podcast?
Well, similar to what you guys were saying earlier, like I have to be honest, sometimes because it's been 5 years, it's like, oh, this is not work, but it does sometimes seem like there's a little bit of admin behind the scenes that sometimes I think, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered with this. But honestly, each and every time that we do this and we have this conversation, I come away and I just think, oh, that's fantastic. Yep, definitely. Yep, we're going to keep going with it. Like maybe it's a little bit like jiu-jitsu as well, where sometimes you think, I don't know if I can be bothered to train today. But then you come away from it and you're like, oh, that was fantastic. I feel amazing. Even if I was the nail, through the entire class, I got my ass handed to me. But I nearly always, I think I could count on one hand the number of times in 16 years I've done a class or an open mat and I haven't come away feeling better for doing it. So it's the same with this podcast. Like you just hear so many amazing things and meet such amazing people that I don't know if I can stop now. Like,
it kind of gets in the veins
to keep going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How about you, Brentos? So coming in, on the ladder and it's already established and everything, what made you want to dive into the deep end?
It was really nice. I felt very, very privileged actually that Kim and Theo asked for me to come on as a co-host. So I actually met Kim and Theo, I'll say 4 years ago, I think it was. So I competed against Theo at Vic Champs, and Theo's a big man, right? So he's at the time he was probably 135, 140 kilos. He's trained as a strong man.
Powerlifter. Were you guys white belts then, Brent?
Yeah, we were white belts. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at Instagram videos of Theo, and he's like squatting and bench pressing like these just massive weights, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm competing against this guy tomorrow. And so
get on top and stay on top. Get on top and stay on top.
Oh God, if only I could. So
it's all right. He just bench press him off.
Yeah, we go and all the dominance crew are sitting, in the same sort of area, and then this giant just sits behind me, and I look around and I'm like, oh fuck, that's Theo. And I'm like,
Oh, sir.
yeah, he's a big man. And like, so, but straight away, he's like, hey, you Brent? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, we're having a match later, man. I'm looking forward to it. And then Kim was there, and so we just got on like really, really well straight away. And he's an absolute gentleman. And then we've competed against each other twice now. And the first time I pulled guard and that didn't work, and then I just suffered in side control for 5 minutes, which was horrible. But survived, which I was happy with. And then the next time I'm like, I'm not pulling guard. And then we just stood for 2.5 minutes. And then he went, all right, I'm over this shit. And he just pulled me to the ground and stayed on top of me for 5 minutes too. So both results have kind of gone like that. But I jumped on their podcast. I was invited onto the podcast to have a chat, and then really enjoyed the energy of Kim. And then Kim and Theo now train with us at Dominance. So they're a massive part of the Dominance crew, which is fantastic. And I was just lucky enough to be asked to come on as a co-host. So for me, one of the reasons I wanted to do this and enjoy doing it is kind of what Kim said before. I enjoy listening to stories. I talk a little bit, but I think I'm actually quite a good listener. So I really enjoy story times a lot, and I always have since I was a kid. So people's stories always intrigue me, and there's always something to learn from it. And I think being on a podcast, you get better at listening, you get better at asking questions. So I think even in life, you know, this is improvements for me too. So I think being a little bit inward focused on, hey, this is helping me be a better person too. So I'm getting heaps of benefits from it.
And what about jiu-jitsu? What do you get from jiu-jitsu?
Bashed. No, jiu-jitsu, it's really funny. So I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and they are like, you know, jiu-jitsu saved my life and all these sorts of things. And I'm lucky enough that that's never been my issue. So when I was a kid, I really wanted to do a martial art, and at the time, I said to my dad, "Hey, I really want to do like a martial art," and generally because it was growing up through the early '80s, it was karate basically. So I said, I really want to do martial arts, probably karate. He's like, "What?" Just punched him in the nose, and then walked off. And I'm like, "Okay." So that didn't, and it wasn't to learn to fight. I knew that I would be benefiting with the discipline that martial arts brings. And so I'd always sort of harbored something in regards to wanting to do a martial art. And then at some stage, 7 years ago, I think it was, I kind of just went, all right, I'm in a position where I can, go out and train a martial art. What is it that I want to do? I have a couple of friends in the dog training world, so I'm a professional dog trainer. I have a couple of friends in the dog training world who also do jiu-jitsu. A couple of podcasts I was listening to, they would talk about the benefits of jiu-jitsu. So I was like, all right, let's do jiu-jitsu. So I walked into a gym. It was a super friendly gym. Coach Craig was a really, really nice, open, friendly, chatty sort of guy. So I got on with him really, really well. And I stayed at Integrity for, I think it was 18 months. And then I moved to Dominance sort of after that and been under Link since then. So for me, I just enjoy being around the team. I think for me, that's a massive part of it. Like the team-based sport that is jiu-jitsu, I really value that a lot. It's challenging. It's hard. All the usual things. So I think for me, it fits my personality too. Like I don't get issues being close to people. So all of those sorts of things that some people really struggle with, they were never issues for me. So it kind of just suits my personality, I think.
Sorry, go.
Sorry, go on. No, I was gonna go with your question because I was gonna wrap it up because we're nearly out of time now. But go for it. Yeah.
One more quick question for both of you: have either of you ever come close to quitting? And if the answer is yes, what got you back on?
I never have. Not me. I'm too stubborn to give up. I don't want to. I already have FOMO if I miss a couple of classes, and I'm like, oh, everyone's gonna catch up. They're getting ahead of me. I can't have that. No, I have to stay on the mat. So yeah, That's me. How about you, Brent?
Yeah, I've never thought of quitting. I've actually never really thought of skipping a class, to be honest with you. My wife and I went camping yesterday overnight, and I kind of made a deal with her because I usually do the Monday lunch class. And so I'm like, oh, I can't make Monday lunch class. All right, looks like I have to go Friday. So,
Yeah.
but like, we have a really cool relationship. I'm super lucky with that. So,
Yeah.
She messaged me last Thursday and she's like, have you got jiu-jitsu tonight? I'm like, yep. And she's like, can you stay home? I'm like, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
the only thing I miss jiu-jitsu for is my wife. It's in my diary every day. So, but yeah, definitely no thoughts of quitting. I enjoy it too much.
Yeah.
Kim,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because you've been
Yeah.
in this a really long time. I've been in this a really long time too. Has because we were talking about whys before, has your why changed? Because mine has, and I just
A
wanted
little
to
bit,
know.
yeah. Yeah, it has. I mean, I first came into jiu-jitsu at a very different point in my life. I had 3 very little kids. I was a single mum, and I really was looking for something for me. Like, it's still there, but now it's much more probably about community. And I really love the community. And I think, like I was saying, it's such a big part of my social life that if I stopped, I would lose all of that social stuff. I don't know that I would feel right to stay connected with those people if I wasn't actually doing the activity that brought us together in the first place. So for me, that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, and I think it's just great. Hopefully this isn't the only, because I don't know of too many other Australian Brazilian Jiu Jitsu podcasts that are released weekly besides the 2 of ours. So I really hope that there can be more to come, in the future. Jiu-Jitsu's certainly grown gangbusters since I first started in 2009. And let's hope that there can be even more Australian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu podcasts out there, whether they stay weekly or less frequently, whatever. I think it's a fantastic thing. And thank you, ladies, so much for giving up your time to come on and collaborate this with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. I was just
Absolutely.
thinking, when you and I were back baby white belts, there probably weren't any female black belts in Australia. I think Sophia, I can't remember what year she got her black belt, but she was the first.
Let alone any
Yeah.
podcasts.
And now there's
That's right.
it's
Yes.
exploding in such
Exploded.
an amazing way. So it's a really cool thing to be a part
100%.
of. I'm
Yeah.
look up to women like you and
Oh,
Sophia and these trailblazing people that led the way and made sure that the rest of us could go, oh, that's something to aspire to. So I feel really privileged to be in that position too myself, but
yeah.
having all of you to lead the way before us was amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brentos, did you want to do the full wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Kaz and Rachel, it's been very, very cool having you guys on. Please, guys, check out the podcast that they have. It is really good. It is called The Gi Spot. The other one you won't find. So, The Gi Spot, check that out. But thanks for tuning into another episode of Roll or Die. Keep training, stay humble. Remember, it's not about the belt, it's about the journey. A big shout out to our sponsor, Athletic Body Care, for keeping us fresh on and off the mats. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to like, rate, and share. Check it out on YouTube. We're trying to bump those YouTube subscribers up. You get like a little thing when you get to like 100,000, right? Like, wouldn't that be amazing? Like, seeing 100,000 YouTube subscribers on our podcast. So that would be fantastic. Check out our merchandise. We've still got a few t-shirts, which I am sporting today. Tell your friends about it. And we will see you next week on another episode of Roll or Die. Again, Kaz and Rach, thank you so much for coming on. And Kim, awesome podcast as always. Great questions. And you do get the best guests going around. So you're a legend. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.